If you're anything like me, chances are you've been watching TV and everybody's been talking about inflation. Whether you turn on CNBC, whether you turn on Fox, CNN, read a newspaper, it doesn't matter. All you're hearing about is inflation. And chances are you have a rough idea of what it is, but you're not really sure how to get in front of it or what it actually means for you in the long term. I'm debt-free Joel, and my channel is dedicated to specifically financial education. So before I start, feel free to like and subscribe to the channel. Any comments that you have would be greatly appreciated. Let's get started. What is inflation? Inflation is basically the purchasing power of a country's currency decreasing over time. Or, in layman's terms, your dollar is worth less today than it was yesterday or a couple years ago. And the way they measure that is basically through what's called the CPI, or the Consumer Price Index. And basically what that is a basket of goods that they measure year over year to see if it increased or not. Now, what's included in that basket of goods is everything that you buy on a day-to-day basis. So think about food and beverage, think about clothes, think about transportation, education, right? These things that have increased over time, that's basically what they measure to see if inflation is increasing. Now, what's not included is investment activity. So think about your stocks, think about your bonds, think about real estate, right? These are things that are outside of the control of inflation, specifically because of that you have outside factors, right? How profitable the company is, how profitable you are with your real estate or whatever. But the one thing you want to take away is that inflation is the price of everything increasing around you, which causes you to have less purchasing power over time. So why is inflation important? Well, for you, that means that your money is going to be worth less in the future, and that's never good. But think about it from a macroeconomic perspective. If you can purchase less in the future, that basically means that economic activity for the country is going to start to decrease, right? There's going to be less tax receipts, whether federally or state. That's going to be a problem because if there's less money coming in, that means that there's going to be deficits larger than what there is right now, and it could be economic downturns. In fact, most economists believe that inflation is caused by an increase in money supply. So think about everything from all the $1 trillion here and the $1 trillion there and all these different programs that these people want to put into place. What's basically going to happen is if you put all this money into the system, it's going to devalue your currency. Now, this is agnostic of whoever you voted for, because over the last 12 to 15 years, this is exactly what everybody's been doing. But at the end of the day, the Federal Reserve has basically stated that they're going to allow inflation to run over 2%. And the reason why they're going to do that is because over the last couple of years, inflation hasn't been that bad. I mean, it's been there, but it hasn't been that bad. So basically what they're thinking, whether you agree with them or not, is that they can, allow inflation to run over 2%, let the economy be hot for a little bit, and then they can raise interest rates that can basically start to hopefully decrease inflation. Now, what does this all mean? What it basically means is that over the next couple of years, you're going to see inflation rise. And with inflation rises, the pressure it's going to put on the economy, you may start to see people purchasing less. You may start to see the Federal Reserve increasing interest rates. They said they're going to increase interest rates in 2023, which means we may have a good couple of years of prices rising around us, which may cause economic problems. So let me give you a couple of examples about inflation. Here's a good one for all of you people who drink coffee. In 1970, you could walk into a corner store, for example, or a deli, and buy a cup of coffee for 25 cents, right? A quarter. In 2019, if you were to buy the same coffee, same bean, same process, nothing extravagant, that same cup of coffee on average would cost you about $1.59, right? $1.59. Doing some rough math here, that's about a 500% increase in the cup of coffee. Yikes. But you're probably saying to yourself, look, going from 25 cents to $1.59, yeah, that sucks, but it's not that big of a deal. I want you guys to think about something. Think about the price of cars, think about the price of shelter, think about the price of transportation, newspapers, even though people don't read newspapers like that, but think about that. Think about the subway, think about everything that's increased around you. Here's even one better for everybody. Think about the price of tuition. Okay, not only is it price gouging that they're doing on their side, but it also includes inflation. So that's why it's a problem. Inflation basically is what I call the silent tax. Everybody and their mother gets taxed by inflation. And unless you guys understand it and get in front of it, you're going to have a problem. But wait, there's more. If you're anything like me, chances are you have a savings account, right? Or you have an emergency fund, which should be about 3 to 6 months of your expenses, right? Everyone should have it. But if you have money sitting in a bank right now, chances are you're losing money. Here's why. If you have money sitting in a bank, chances are a high yield savings account, for example, is going to give you about 50 basis points or 0.5%. And let's say on average, inflation has been 2.5% per year, right? So that means on average, everything has increased around you 2.5%. What does that mean? That basically means that if everything around you increases at 2.5%, but your money only grows at 0.5%, that means that you're being silently taxed 2% every single year. What does that mean in the long term? What it basically means in the long term is that if I leave my money right now in a savings account, if I leave, let's say, whatever it is, $30,000, you leave $30,000 in your account and you have that for the next 30 years, that $30,000 is not going to be able to buy you the same amount of stuff now that it was later on. So it's not just the money that you're spending on a day-to-day basis. Actually, it's also what's preparing you for the long term. Think about people who want to buy houses in the future. Think about the kids' tuition that you're going to be funding. This is where it's called the silent tax. Everybody, I don't care how rich you are, everybody has to go through this. So as you can see, if your money's not keeping up with inflation, not only are you paying for it on a day-to-day basis, but you're also going to be paying for it years from now. So you're probably asking, okay, how do I keep in front of inflation so that I don't get silently taxed? And what does this mean also for like my investment portfolio? Well, in part 2 of this video, I'm going to talk about some ways that you can either prepare yourself for the inflation and what you can do from an investment standpoint to stay ahead of the curve. But for now, please understand that we all have to go through this at some point or another, and you need to be consciously aware of this silent tax. I'm Debt-Free Joel, and I'll see you next time.